The Fiorina Clinton feud continues, at least in one direction, largely. We're going to talk about prospective presidential candidate Carly Fiorina a little bit more on the program today. She's launching a new attack against Hilary Clinton, but it is not going to get very far at all. Let's watch.
Every single Republican candidate has been asked about their vote for the war in Iraq. The one person who's not been asked that question, because she won't answer the question, is Hilary Clinton. But one person who was on the job in 2011 when Iraq started to fall apart was not the Republican nominees or candidates for president. It's Hilary Clinton. She hasn't been asked yet. What would she do now in Iraq?
Well, she actually was asked, and she did say last week in New Hampshire that it was a mistake, her vote in Iraq. She wrote that in her book. So she's spoken of that in New Hampshire and in Iowa.
But she hasn't said
what, she hasn't had a news conference.
She hasn't said what happened from 2011 when both she and President Obama declared victory in Iraq. They declared victory in Iraq.
So the last point that she made was actually right. Okay, so
I don't know if they literally declared victory.
Okay, so it was partially right, but there was this sense that there was some sort of mission accomplished in Iraq, and that's why we were, pulling out our troops and everything. But the whole thing about her, obviously she was corrected right there. But the part of that video that I love so much is like the smug confidence of what she was saying. And it's just another example of politicians just regurgitating talking points.
What they'd heard.
Yes, exactly. And so in this case, it was a Republican, but Democrats do it too. I mean, that's what politicians are all about, just regurgitate talking points. What did my campaign manager tell me to say? And all you have to do is a little bit of research to see whether or not Hillary Clinton answered that question. And she did answer that question. What I also find interesting is all the different flip-flops that are happening with the war in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, we absolutely had to vote in favor of it. We're protecting the country, we're protecting national security. And of course, as soon as you see the polls, indicating that Americans hate that we invaded Iraq, then all of a sudden politicians specifically, they've evolved. Their opinion on that has evolved.
Yeah. Yeah, I did love that. It was pretty funny that as she was saying it, you're right, she did look incredibly smug. She hasn't answered it. There was a little, I don't know if you saw it was a little lower third at the bottom. It was someone tweeting saying, Carly Fiorina says that she writes all of her own remarks. Perhaps she should have someone else do it because they might do some fact checking.
Damn.
And then I love that as she's being corrected, she does the goldfish like, she's so shocked, she doesn't know what she's going to say. And so she pivots to this stuff about declaring victory. Now, Bush declared victory or mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
You can certainly say that Barack did something like that when he decided to pull people out. And now she says no one is declaring victory in Iraq now. What happened? Well, a lot of stuff happened. But if one of those things is that people no longer feel like they need to declare victory, that's a good thing because it's a stupid thing to do.
Absolutely.
This isn't World War II. We're not conquering capitals anymore. That's not how wars are fought.
By the way, another thing that I should mention, and maybe Fiorina will focus on this later on during the primaries, but Marco Rubio is another person who flip-flopped on his commentary about the war in Iraq. I mean, a few years ago, he was very gung-ho in supporting the Bush administration for what they did, a preemptive war based on absolutely no intelligence indicating that they had nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction. And then now that he's already announced his bid for the Republican ticket, all of a sudden he's like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
So these Republican politicians are just as bad as Democratic politicians who keep flip-flopping on the war in Iraq. The reality is they need to all stop for a second and realize that that war was an absolute disaster.
Exactly. And I have two more quick pieces of advice for Carly Fiorina because I want this to be an interesting race. There's two more reasons why they would ask you a question that perhaps they wouldn't ask Hillary Clinton. Now, they did actually ask it of her, but they're going to ask you more because, for one, it was a Republican that sent us into Iraq in the first place. That's why Republicans need to make clear what their position is on it. Because your party has a history of putting us in the middle of absolutely horrendous wars that drag on for more than a decade and cost more than $1 trillion. That's why you have to answer for it. The second reason is that we know a lot about Hillary Clinton. We know that on the topic of Iraq and her foreign policy in general, she sucks quite a bit. We already know that. We don't know anything about you because you haven't accomplished much in your life. There's no information about you out there because you haven't actually held a political office of note. That is why you're going to have to answer for yourself. You are not Hillary Clinton. Stop acting like just because you have the same sort of haircut and you're a white lady that you deserve the same sort of respect and automatic deferential nature from the media. You don't.